Getting beat up by spreadsheets in your brewery? Don't let those dumb pivot tables bully you around. Get rid of the spreadsheets and the other clunky brewery software and get Ollie, the smart and affordable way to manage your brewery. Learn more at getollie.com.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Super excited to be here for the 2025 Fall Conference. And a big shout out to craft beer professionals for putting this together. Hopefully we all had a great first day yesterday and a better day too. For those who don't know me, my name is Matthew. I'm the sales director here at Brew Ninja. We're a brewery management software, just much like our sponsor there, helping breweries keep track of inventory and costs and excise reports across Canada and US since 2017. Sounds like a long time now. But after what I really want to get into today is, hey, after a busy summer, it's really time to catch your breath. This is the moment to zoom out, take stock of how things went this summer, and look ahead for the next big push, the holiday season. Busy seasons hide problems. Production runs get squeezed, deliveries get chaotic, invoices pile up, and the cost isn't always just dollars. It's stress, delays, and missed opportunities. Taking some time to pause and reflect now means fewer late nights and fewer we're out of that moments, and more breathing room for the next season. Today, I'll be sharing some helpful takeaways you can use in the next 2 months to prepare for the holiday season, whether you're running on spreadsheets, sticky notes, or software systems like Brew Ninja or Ollie. Now, let's be real. Brewing beer isn't always enough anymore. As the market changes and matures, we're all juggling more. Rising costs means tighter margins. There's a lot more competition in the market there than a few years ago. And external factors are adding new kinds of complexity to running any kind of business on a daily basis. Now, before we start talking about making changes to your business, let's take a minute and pause and reflect on the summer. We built a quick health check quiz to help you reflect, and is a bit of a worksheet, has 10 questions. You know what? I'll pop the link here, but I'll also bring it out at the end of my presentation today, so you can go in there, answer some questions, and it'll spin out a bit of a result for you guys. Now, during busy seasons, one of the areas that gets the most chaotic is your sales management. As business picks up, things get chaotic between emails and texts from customers, sticky notes that you've pasted all over your desk. With the best of intentions, information does get lost. You end up forgetting to follow up with customers, chasing down payments, and run into inventory issues. Now, without a good system in place and some history to look back on, even the best of salespeople will forget to check back with your regulars for their reorders. This really throws off the brewery's schedule, leaving them scrambling to stay ahead of demand and puts strain on your relationship with your customers. It's ultimately stressful for everyone involved. So, whether you're working with a third-party distributor or distributing directly to your customers, tracking order history and preferences can help you deliver better service. One additional situation that I've seen in the past here is also one where you have a third-party distro, but you also have sales rep going out there to market your beer. And in that scenario, it's even more important to have records of potential sales, history of beers that the customers has liked, and feedback directly from the customer. Because ultimately, not all distributors will show you their stats and which customers have ordered what. A lot of times, the most you're going to get out of your distro might be, and again, this might differ from state to state, distro to distro, but a lot of times I hear, hey, my distro partner only gives me kind of the history of what's been sold or what's been selling in a more aggregate fashion. So really making sure you have internally your detailed notes on your customer, which of your products do well in their store or their restaurants, what time is best for their deliveries, and who do you need to reach out for future orders. Now, one way to do all that is really automate some of your follow-up processes. Setting up thank you email templates, reminders about upcoming deliveries, personal offers on new products so that they get sent automatically, keeping your customers in the loop more effortlessly, and make sure their experience with you feels a little bit more personal. Many of us already have some of these toolings. Look, Gmail can do a lot of stuff already, but many of us might have email programs like MailChimp, CRM products, or even your POS systems might have some follow-up tools that you could use already. So really utilize them. And of course, ERP systems that you're using to manage inventory sales already, right? A lot of those tools you may have access already and really could help you keep that follow-up momentum there. Other things to look at is also tracking your customers' reorder periods, looking back and say, how often does my customers and these groups of customers that I may have, how often do they order? Look at how many days on average between different orders. Now, if you're not using a management software, you could use spreadsheets using conditional formatting to highlight customers' dates, average date counts between orders. All of that can be done as well. Now, you would also most likely have this information in your accounting platforms like QuickBooks or Sage. And some accounting platforms will have some tools for you to look at invoice timing and based on the customer as well. So some of that could be available. And really keep your ordering process simple so that people have no reason to put off ordering from you, whether it be a very proactive email to or phone calls to your customers to make sure that they reorder the same thing or push a new product. I mean, the food and bev industry is fairly notorious for late payments, so you want to make sure that it's easy for people to pay you as well. Find out if your invoicing systems allows you to store customer credit card information or auto charge that you can auto charge on delivery. Now, of course, this can also vary state by state. We also know that, hey, plenty of your restaurant customers still use checks. They might use fintech, which now is, fintech is already fairly standardized, but also does make your life a little bit easier so that they can, process the payment a little faster. But of course, make sure you're within your rules and guidelines of your state before, making changes to your payment system. And of course, a little organization can go a long way. So making sure you can keep up with your orders when the holiday rush hits, and it makes your buying, all of this kind of makes that buying experience a little bit easier so that, hey, you can turn these one-time customers and buyers into long-term business partners. So what else can we do to make sure that, hey, the upcoming busy season is going to be as smooth as possible? Well, if you've checked out our talks from the past, you've probably heard us talk a lot about inventory, and we always push for some form of a just-in-time inventory management. Now, with all the ingredients that get used for each brew and the ever-changing lineup of products that many craft breweries have, inventory management can be tough. We're big believers that by mastering some kind of just-in-time inventory system, you can really free up that shelf space and kind of keep your cash flow healthy. Now, with without a solid inventory system in place, it is common to end up with either too much or too little inventory, and or just inventory that isn't moving as fast as you'd like. Or there might be scenarios where you have not enough of your best sellers, and the ingredients when you want to produce them just aren't there or don't come in time. We also have to keep in mind, hey, during busy season, if you need to make purchases for your grains or hops, well, all the other breweries in the nation is also trying to do the same thing. So some of those deliveries might get pushed back a little bit later than you would like. So having that initial understanding, we have 2 months before December needs to hit. So there's a little bit more time now for you to think, hey, if I start brewing in November and these are all the batches that I have, how much of the grain, what do I need to buy? What do I have right now? So when brewers don't have the right ingredients they need, it is easy to fall in the trap of spending more time planning or just spending more money on last minute orders. All of this leads to cash flow problems and money left on the table. Either you have too much inventory and ultimately cash sitting on your shelf, or you can't keep up with demand and you're missing out on orders as a result. Now, knowing what you have on hand and where to find that information is the first step. ERP systems like ourselves and spreadsheets are great tools to use. Now, unfortunately, some people do use the accounting system as part of their inventory, with their inventory features. There's just certain features and certain limitations to, QuickBooks or Sage. If you want to use it strictly for inventory, there's just limitations in those accounting packages, right? It's very good at telling you how much money of hops or raw materials you have in store, but not necessarily how much was used or how many pounds of hops or grains that you currently have sitting around. It can tell you, hey, how many quantities or flats of beer or kegs of beer that you might have. But again, because it's not connected to some kind of production scheduling or usage scheduling, it's going to be hard for you to update it manually every time. So if you want your inventory records to stay up to date, we have to make it easy for your staff. It could be just you at the brewery doing all of this, but at the same time, it could be you and 5, 6 other folks dealing with production, sales, racking, cellarmans. So making it easy for everybody to use is what the first step to make your records stay up to date more consistently. Now, and I'm not talking just about having softwares. This could be, could be a lot of other tools. We have to think of how managing inventory can fit into your staff's already busy day. Is it possible for them to update records from the floor? Do they need to go back to a dedicated computer or an iPad, right? Finding mobile-friendly solutions does increase the chances of your staff keeping on top of inventory management. Again, it's not just about ERP systems. It could be, hey, instead of using an offline spreadsheet from one dedicated computer to using Google Sheets that is accessible on your phone, or have an iPad that's movable on the floor. The iPad cases are pretty tough now, so you can throw it on the floor plenty of times and nothing really could happen, right? Developing a clear SOP really makes things easier for your staff to do, making sure that everyone knows exactly what they need to record and when does allow for less room for errors and back and forth between different management, different team members. And it really gives them that autonomy. Hey, I know exactly what I need to do as a cellarman. I know exactly what I need to do as your brewer's assistant. And this gives them clarity on all fronts. So having said all that, really while no two holiday seasons are exactly the same, past sales can tell you a bit about what to expect in the months ahead. Now, obviously, it's not just going to be last year we sold 500 barrels of my chestnut IPA. Great, I'm going to do, just the same amount, right? We have to start combining reports from sales of Christmas past to even sales reports from the summer to figure out what my trend lines are looking like. Hey, has general demand gone up or down? Has my, let's say it's gone up 10%. Great. If I brewed 300 barrels of chestnut ale last year and my general business has gone up 10%, I can start combining some of those numbers to create a more accurate forecast. Now, caveat to that is forecasting is never perfect. So we really have to start looking at getting all the information as you need, as much of it so that you can make the best decision for your specific brewery. From there, we can really start scheduling out your brews. This is going to be really helpful in locking down that just-in-time inventory management system we mentioned. Once you have enough of a rough idea of what you need to produce in the upcoming months, you can start figuring out what ingredients you need to start ordering, how long it's going to take to get here, right? It's October now, so that means if we figured out a plan for the next month or two, we start brewing all of our, winter products in November. We can order it today. It takes on average 2 to 3 weeks for it to get here, et cetera, et cetera. You give yourself that space to start planning and looking at what you need. Checking out inventory records you've been updating, looking at what you need versus what you have, and end up figuring out what the final order number is. Remember, don't forget to consider orders you already placed currently, right, that are on their way in. So while you might figure out, hey, I need 500 pounds of Citra hops, but I already ordered, 200 pounds, that hasn't come yet. So you got to make sure that we look at existing orders that you're still waiting on before making more orders moving forward. Now, bonus point here, if you do contract brew, I think this is the perfect time to proactively reach out to your contractees and see what their needs are going to be like for the holiday season, so you can really start to group those purchases, get a bit more of a purchasing power as well. Now, once you have that game plan for the next few weeks, it's time to build out your new system as a routine. We talked about setting reorder points for customers. We all, that really same framework can apply here. Think about what ingredients you use most often, what your best sellers are that you're always going to scramble around to make for the holiday season. Set up some low stock reminders on those. Hey, even if it's, spreadsheets that you're using, again, conditional formatting is really good at just visually showing you if this cell goes below 20, it's going to be bright red. Great, right? You can sift through that data so much faster, look at it and say, oh, shoot, that's red. I need to start brewing that beer, or I need to start packaging more of my kegs versus my flats. Of course, you have systems like, inventory systems or ERPs, even better, right? A lot of those tools, again, will be able to provide that information more upfront and more proactively. But making sure you find a way that you're reminded and you're made aware of your inventory, your inventory is just the point I'm trying to make across here. We want to make sure we document all processes as well. Look, you can make it, we can say all of this, but if it's not documented, when somebody leaves or somebody's going on vacation, no one's going to be able to know where to find that information, how to do certain things. So again, making sure there's some kind of documentation. There's a lot of AI tools, and I invite anyone to contact me, personally, and to talk more about that as well, because I think there's a lot of AI tools nowadays that makes our lives easier. There's one that does, screen recording and makes it all into some kind of PDF, so you can look at certain steps for you. So again, little handbooks you can quickly create at the brewery makes your SOP life so much easier. Any new staff, new brewer comes along, it's super easy for them to take a look and follow along. Now, getting organized and improving your access to information can have a huge payoff during the holiday season. It's a bit of a lull now, so now would be the time to do all of that. And once you have the system in place, you can keep building on top of it to make sure that you have every busy season runs more smoothly than the last. So let's figure out how and where you're going to track the information and put some process to place to make maintaining that information a sustainable habit that doesn't eat up more time than it needs to be. And then we'll dive into a few suggestions on what to track. Now, first of all, think about how you're managing your business right now. Maybe your production schedule is on a whiteboard, your recipes are in a notebook or your brain or spreadsheets. Inventory is managed between a couple of spreadsheets, and this is very common. I'm not saying this is you, but I'm saying this is what we've seen fairly often. And orders are split between texts, emails, sticky notes, or written down handwritten papers. So if it's working for you, wonderful, right? But more often than not, this results in some missed orders, stock overages, or shortages. And decisions feels like a bit of a guesswork, right? It's harder to find the information later, and it's not always clear where it is at times. At the end of the day, all of this is just money being left on the table. The goal today is to help you find more organization, less chaos, and ultimately a clearer picture of what's going on in your business without necessarily needing to invest in softwares and additional functions that may not be feasible right now. So the purpose of whatever tools you use should be to make life easier for your team, not just you, but for everybody else that touches it, right? Think about who will be using the tool, what will work for them, set things up so that your team can enter and access information from their phones or tablet, right as the work is happening. Now, will your brewer need access to recipes and schedules from the warehouse floor? Does your sales team need customer and inventory information on the road? Does the owner need to be able to find profit margins at 11 o'clock at night? These are all the things to take into consideration and kind of ask yourself as you're looking through kind of your tech stack, your toolkit at the brewery. Generally, the easier your chosen tools are to access and use, the better, right? Obviously, the higher the chance of staff actually using them. Of course, again, while there are tools out there like Brew Ninja, ERP systems, with this in mind, you may or may not always need to invest all of that, right? It could be as simple as moving your static spreadsheet again into a cloud version, so Google Sheets, something that's shareable and collaborable, right? You might want to move your production plan off the whiteboard and maybe into a calendared product of some sort. And of course, in order for your information to be useful, it needs to be up to date. All too often, if it isn't scheduled, it doesn't happen. So set recurring reminders in whatever calendar or planner you end up using to update your data on an ongoing basis, and assign different tracking tasks to different people so that everyone knows exactly what to expect. Again, document your process for managing information, brews, as well as backup plans for when people are on vacation, and etc. Now, what I didn't mention here is also your brew data, your brew sheets, your fermentation logs. All of that if it's still in a notebook or physically written down somewhere, this could be as easy as taking a photo of it. So you, again, have some kind of digital copy. It could be sent to your email, could be saved in a Google Drive. And again, it could be accessible and used elsewhere later on. So making sure that things are accessible constantly is, again, makes life easier in the long run. Not when things are good, but most importantly, when something hit the fan, right? It's always when some things hit the fan when we oh, what did we actually do there? Why is my beer tasting this way? Rather than flipping through pages of brews and records, it's easier to sort and search through some kind of digital means. Now, what to track, right? I mean, there's truly no limit to the different things that you could track and report on, but where could we start? I mean, after talking to countless breweries across Canada and US over the past few years, we've compiled a list of things to pay attention to that packs the biggest punch. First off would be reorder periods for customer accounts. Again, we touched on this lightly earlier, but it really can make a big difference. So I'm going to bring it up again. Pay attention to how frequently your customers order from you, because it's once you have that information, it could be as easy as saying, hey, John hasn't made an order yet. I know they order a keg every 20, 30 days. Great. It's as easy as, here's a list of people that needs to order. Great. Your reps can now reach out to them proactively a day or two a week before their usual period, figure out their needs, and give that personal experience to your customers. Make sure people don't forget about you this way. And you also, and if you only sold to a customer a handful of times and they weren't planning on purchasing again, tracking their average order really empowers you to reach out at the right time to potentially win them back or potentially continue that business. Figure out profit margins, but per product, right? Rather than tracking average cost across all products or entire recipe line, tracking the profit margins, on specific products and SKUs is very important. Again, while it's easy to run profit loss on accounting systems, we really encourage you to try to track exactly what each product and SKU costs you to produce. And there's a few reasons, right? Seeing margins per product allows you to see how you're pricing it, and if you're pricing it effectively or potentially not pricing it in a way that it's maximizing your profit margins. I say that because, hey, everybody has situations where distro 1 requires a particular price, distro 2 requires a particular price, or this state versus that state, I might sell at a different price point, but I'm going to make the beer at the same cost, right? So seeing where my distribution channels are more profitable, seeing what I need to push where as well. And of course, paying attention to your COGS. Why I say per SKU is that, hey, while my IPA may cost me, $1 a gallon, for example, when it's packaged into a keg, my losses are low, right? And general loss of packaging might be fairly low. But when I package into, cans, 355s, 12 or 16 ounces, the cost of packaging, the cost of loss becomes a lot higher. So it's better for you to keep track of them per SKU to figure out, okay, my cost of goods is 20% higher on, packaged products or cans versus kegs or versus bottles, right? And you can start planning out better what SKUs to push forward, what SKUs to produce as well. Now, finally, looking at volume packaged versus sold per recipe. Tracking how much you're producing versus selling for each product can help you identify sales trends for better forecasting. Can also help you get a clearer picture of whether or not your just-in-time inventory system is working. And ultimately, this makes production planning easier for your brewer and gives your sales teams a clear overview of what to do and when. It means that decision comes from data rather than anecdotal stories and kind of gut feeling. Not saying gut feeling is bad, though. Now, I've gone through a lot here, and some of these things are easier than others, and what makes sense for you will depend on your business and its unique setup. But some additional suggestions to get you ready for the smooth holiday season is really take that health check to see where you have room to improve. Move your spreadsheet and production schedules to a more cloud-based and mobile-friendly location. Set up systems to track key customer information. Automate customer follow-ups and look into auto pay options for customer invoices. And set up reorder points for ingredients, products, and customer accounts. Consider moving to cost-based accounting versus profit and loss accounting, and document your processes so that they can stay in place even during the holiday rush. And again, I've done a bit of research in a lot of these areas. If you are interested in a further conversation around, hey, what kind of tools are out there that can help me do specific actions, or maybe how to use AI these days to help, I'm more than happy to have that conversation. Now, this can be, to figure out everything can be time consuming to set up, but once you have a system in place and documented, this can be on an autopilot, right? The results are brewers who know what they're brewing, less calls to the brewery for sales teams looking to check on inventory, well-informed owners and managers who can make logical decisions with ease, and ultimately cuts down on internal chaos and ensures that your team is well equipped to handle the ever-changing demand of operating and operating successfully in such competitive market. Now, and this is the perfect time. If the next month or two we've created routine, you've tried it out for this Christmas season and built all the SOPs, we can now turn this into a repeatable process every quarter or period leading up to a big event, right? After Christmas, it's Super Bowl in February, or then maybe it's Cinco de Mayo. You have every 2-3 month stints of these big events that you know is going to be a revenue driver for your brewery. Now, of course, while you can do a lot with spreadsheets, brewery management software can make things easier and more automated. And in Brew Ninja, we do offer all the tooling that I had mentioned earlier, from managing your inventory to costs, figuring out your production schedule, figuring out what to buy based on your production schedule, and of course, streamlining your sales and CRM. All right, well, thanks for your time again today. Hopefully this has been helpful session. And again, thank you so much for CBP for putting this virtual conference together. Now I've popped the QR code and URL for our gut check, our health check here on screen. And if you'd like to check it out, please, again, feel free to email me. I love to chat on video or on a phone call with a coffee, talk more about what we found, and little toolings that we think are very useful for breweries. But yeah, feel free to reach out, and I'm always happy to chat.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this session, we'd love to see you in real life. We host in-person workshops across the country for craft beer professionals just like you that are held in some of the most exciting beer destinations around. These immersive events are designed to help you grow and connect with others. You'll meet peers from across the country and leave with actionable strategies for success. Connection has never been more important, and you can learn more at cbpconnects.com. Cheers. See you there.